to another episode of Truck Wheel with JT Franks. JT Franks, you have come quite a long way.
Hello and welcome to Second Class Cinema, the show where we watch a B movie and immediately discuss. I'm Tom. I'm here with Brittany and Eric. Hello.
Hello. I'm Eric.
Hey, Eric.
You're Brittany.
I am.
Great news.
She looked at me expectantly.
I said hello.
We all said hello, and so we just came off of watching the 2010 movie Bitter Feast.
And it was not that bitter.
No. It wasn't too bad. So, Brittany, this was your pick. Why don't you fill us in on why you picked it?
I did. We found this movie when we were sifting through piles of movies at the flea market from some video store that had gone out of business. And
That's
the
right.
premise of this movie is that... I'm just going to tell you the premise because...
Well, that's the reason why.
Because that's what made me
Wrap
wanna
it into
watch
one.
So basically, this chef gets a horrible review from a douchebag food critic blogger. And it like ruins his life. The dude gets like fired and all this shit happens. So basically he snaps, kidnaps the food blogger, and then makes him perform food related like tasks.
Yeah, he makes him prepare food based on the reviews that he had done that
Like-
destroyed other chefs.
Yeah, like cook the perfect over easy egg. And if you would get it wrong, he would get like punished horribly.
And if he got it right, he would be allowed to eat.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, he does not get allowed to eat.
What? Doesn't get to eat a whole lot of food.
No, that's...
But I thought it sounded absurd and awesome, so...
Yeah, I mean, when I read that, I was expecting something to be slightly comedic.
Me too.
Very silly.
I was
yeah,
expecting
very
it to be
silly.
like a black comedy, like heavily comedic.
Yeah, like something you can call it that, but not the case with this particular movie, no?
No, it was more of a thriller with like a few comedic undertones here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell there are a couple of places where they're trying to lighten the mood, or at least make you kind of like get that sort of like shock laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
But overall, it played it very straight.
It
did.
played it more straight than I thought it was going to, considering, you know, this movie didn't have like a DVD menu, so I was already like feeling slightly negative, like, well, come on, what the hell? Well, it doesn't have a DVD menu.
Ironic, a movie about restaurants, no menu.
What?
I came up with that one before we started the show, guys.
How long are you holding on to that?
5 minutes.
All right, great.
But yeah, that was not good looking.
No, so it wasn't looking good, but it ended up being better than anticipated. So why don't we start with some successes?
The acting was spot on.
Yeah.
I couldn't have asked for better in a movie like this.
And so these are familiar faces actually in this movie.
They are?
Yes.
Oh.
They are. Well, James LaGrosse was in Bad Girls with Drew Barrymore, that like 90s cowboy girl.
Yeah.
Cowboy girl movie.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
And he was also in like the modern retelling of Macbeth, which was called Scotland, PA. And he was great in that movie too. I love it. And Josh Leonard, who was in Blair Witch Project,
Blair Witch, yeah.
was our dickhead food critic.
Yeah, so they picked, some familiar faces for all of us, so it made it kind of easier to get into it. And they picked some good actors, too.
I
all
thought
the
they
acting
both
was
did a
good.
great job.
Yeah, considering
Fantastic.
they were the central point of the movie, so much, I would say more than 80% of the movie was just these two guys interacting. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they were the ones carrying this entire thing.
Yeah, they brought a serviceable amount of intensity to their roles.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think it's impressive how much they managed to accomplish with mostly just two actors.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie's got about 6 characters, and usually about 2 of them are on screen at any given time.
I love
And
the
they did a
private
good job.
investigator.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, the private investigator character was on point.
I wrote down that he was a perfect slob.
It really is. He had like the receding hairline, skullet, and like
I didn't know there was a word for that.
and like the earring and just the
Like those like really colorful sunglasses.
Yes.
You know? Ugh. One of those guys. But yeah, all the characters in this movie, very solid, very purposeful. You could say this movie had a lot of purpose behind it.
It did.
Yeah.
It did a good job not being like,
Plotting. Like,
yeah, perfect. Yes,
It cut
thank you.
to the chase.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe I'm giving it. I don't want to say I'm giving it too much credit, but the fact is, we just came off of the final match, the last match.
Last match.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. And I mean, that movie had no like drive whatsoever. It was just a lot of people walking around, and there wasn't really anything pushing. Like, there's no motivators. I never really felt like there was any kind of. It just didn't care.
Yep, exactly.
This, within the first 10 minutes, we had a reasonable motivation for the food critic and for the chef.
Totally.
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
totally understood where both of these characters are coming from. It didn't waste any time setting that up. And as soon as we got into the action, I was like, okay, this all makes reasonable sense within the context of a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also within the context of what we watched, just most of the time, this was way higher quality than most
totally.
of that stuff. I mean, considering it is in the age of, I think that huge push in DSLR filmmaking. I'm not sure if this was one of those DSLR, but like when independent kind of low budget movies started to look really good, they started to do that really well, and I thought this benefited from that a lot.
And to cut into that, I think part of the reason it looked so successful is that the special effects were done mostly practically.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I don't think I recognized any CG in there. It looked like all the blood, where they used it sparingly, was practical.
Yeah.
And places where they didn't think they would be able to accomplish an effect, they just cleverly either like hit it from sight or like did it off camera, and it was more powerful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I had that as a plus. The makeup effects. They were not over the top, but not underdone. They
Yeah.
were right where they needed to be.
Goldilocks special effects there.
The food critic's like cheek burn that was like getting worse and worse throughout the
Ew,
movie.
yeah, that
like
was disgusting.
That was really well executed.
Like
Yeah.
one side of his face just looked so damaged and gaunt and terrible, and the other side was just slightly distressed.
Yeah, they saved their really over the top, not over the top, but their big special effects for like very key moments in the movie. So I thought that was well executed in that sense as well. So what else we got?
Let's see. We covered pacing, development, motivation, all of
Yes,
those
we did.
things.
All things that make a decent movie. Right?
We're not used to talking about good movies.
Well, because
Yeah.
I wrote that down like rapid fire, like pacing, comma, development, comma. But yeah, we got that all up. Makeup effects, and my love for the PI. I think that was all the pluses that I had down.
I think this movie had a pretty salient commentary to make about critics.
Oh yeah.
So like around this was made 2010.
Yeah, 2009, 2010. I'm
okay.
assuming. Yeah.
So I mean, around that time, when I used to spend more time on the internet, the concept of criticism on the internet was just be as viciously mean and rude as you possibly can, regardless of how rude and mean the thing that you're reviewing actually warrants. And I feel like this is some sort of reaction to that kind of climate where reviewing things isn't really supposed to be about, giving it a fair judgment, but rather just tearing it apart as viciously as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I as soon as we started watching this, I started thinking about Heckler, the documentary,
The
by
Jamie Kennedy one?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
piece of crap. Look at me.
I never watched it.
Okay, so I mean, I'll give that its fair due. The first 20-30 minutes are pretty good, and then it becomes extremely self-indulgent. Jamie Kennedy has the thinnest skin ever, but that's besides the point. The thing is, like, this sets up kind of it makes it come off as like, okay, this critic is being unfairly vicious to the people that he's reviewing, and you kind of see the consequences of that.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm trying to figure out if it really oversteps its bounds in saying, hey, if you can't do it, then don't review it, which is something I've never agreed with. I think there's like a line where I can say, well, I don't know how to make a movie, but I can say that whatever I just saw was a piece of garbage, which is basically what we do on the show. So it became a very self-reflective.
Yeah, we were
thing
thinking
while I was
about
watching this.
If that were the case, most things would be off the table for criticism to most people.
Right. And I feel like this very nicely tread the waters of not necessarily saying, hey, if you can't do it, don't review it, but it also said you don't have to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
Which I hope is kind of where we come across on the show, where we give everything its fair shake.
Yeah, if it earned it, then it gets it. And if it didn't, then it doesn't. And of course, all of our personal opinions fuel these things, which is what makes it unique.
Yeah.
Well, I like the angle that it took with the blogger. His name was JT.
Franks.
JT Franks, yeah. JT.
I liked how it kind of took the angle of JT being just a vicious critic, but at the same time, his life behind that was like super miserable.
Yeah.
Like he was that asshole in his regular life and in his work life. And at first, it's weird. Like at first I was like, I totally get why Peter's so upset. And like, I'm kind of rooting for him. But then as soon as it like flipped and he had him, I was like, I can't get behind you anymore.
Yeah.
This is just a little too much.
I actually had down for a note, like, I don't even know who I'm rooting for right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, both these guys are just hurt dudes, and they've led shitty lives, and then they collided with each other, and it just didn't work out well for either of them.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
JT, I was like, oh, well, I mean, he's being a ruthless critic. Okay. Yeah. But then he was totally being a total dick to his wife.
Total dick.
And I was like, he was like, I don't care if you live or die or like stay or go, whatever. I don't give a shit. I was like, wow, you are a prick in all aspects of life.
Yeah, but then, you find out something that happened in his life which caused all the self-loathing and all that other shit,
Yeah, I think, not to call it a failure, I think they could have done a better job maybe expounding on why he was so miserable. Maybe not like throw it in to be like, so like, well, his kid died and he can't finish his novel and he's miserable. I feel like maybe they could have stretched that out to be a little bit longer, but I'm not going to fault the movie because it set it up very tersely, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, don't linger on that.
It was
'cause
concise.
It gave me everything I needed to know, so it's like, all right, it didn't, pander to the, this is definitely what he's feeling. I can get it.
Right. For a horror movie shorthand, it was perfect.
Oh, yeah, totally agree.
If they were just trying to make like a straight drama about between these two characters, I say, okay, stretch it out a little bit. If this was like a 2-hour drama about these characters instead of a horror movie.
Yeah.
I think it could have been stretched out a little bit, but for what it was supposed to be, it was perfect.
Yeah, I can agree. And basically, I'd say just the overall look and feel of the movie. They did everything right to create the moods with lighting and color and everything. It was just well done. It was a well-edited piece as well. Just tight.
Yeah, it was competent.
I was not expecting that today.
Me either.
Yeah.
I expected it to be really silly and like tongue-in-cheek and dark. And it was just kind of, it was dark, but serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they did it correctly. There was like serious pathos on the screen.
Yeah.
Which is very rare for these types of movies.
Yeah, at first I didn't think that Peter was like crazy enough to go through with it. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, I don't see him as like that type of villain. Like he just doesn't seem crazy enough.
Yeah.
Until he like had JT in the woods and he was like shooting his gun in the air and like just screaming help. Like, hi, nobody's gonna find you.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's kind of crazy.
He kind of snapped, yeah.
Yeah.
It came out like, and they did it well. It was paced perfectly because it took about a half hour before we got to that point.
Yeah.
So like we kind of see,
but they fit so much into that first like half hour. You had like a great idea of who these people were. Like you got to see Peter on his talk show and like at his work at the restaurant, and it was just
he's like not getting any respect from anybody.
Yeah, it was very complete, and you kind of see that it was his review that tore all this apart.
Right. It wasn't necessarily just the critic. It was just like everything building up to that. It's just that review was the last thing that set him off.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it was the review that had Mario Batali fire him.
Oh, yeah, by the way, Mario Batali's in this movie.
And he actually did a good job.
He says fuck a lot.
Yeah, he swore a lot, and I was like, oh, nice, he got to swear a lot. And then I was like, wow, that was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, Mario Batali as not himself, but awesome nonetheless.
So if that's it, then would we like to transition to failures?
I still have more things to say.
We have more successes?
Believe it or not, yeah.
All right, then pile it on.
This movie uses misdirection in a very sharp way.
Agreed.
Because, I mean, maybe it's because we went into this expecting like a subgrade horror movie. We were constantly saying like, oh, he's going to make him do this, like, because we weren't expecting the movie to waste any time in, just throwing something on the screen. And most of the time we were wrong. Like, there was the scene where the food critic's wife was, brushing her teeth in the mirror, classic setup. She opens the bathroom mirror to get like something out of it, closes the mirror. There's no one behind her.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they didn't do that.
I thought for sure someone was going to be there.
Yeah, such a horror movie cliche. And they set it up perfectly to say, hey, we're setting up this cliche, but we're not going to act on it. And then 10 seconds later, the guy shows up behind her in a different section of the house. They set it up completely differently. I love that.
And it was well done.
Definitely.
It was a good element of creepiness.
Yeah, they constantly were setting up moments where they were misdirecting us into thinking something was going to happen and letting the tension build, letting the tension deflate a little bit, and then immediately hitting you with something.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, interesting pace.
It was well done.
Well, if that's it.
I think I'm good now. I'll stop gushing.
Well, on the topic of cliches that they had done successfully, they kind of broke it there. A place where they used it was they did with the PI character.
The axe.
The axe in the back.
I had that as a negative as
Yeah,
well.
I didn't like that.
Yeah, it was one of those, the movie had done so well at, misleading us along the way. This was kind of towards the end. And then they just whip out a cliche that was expected, and then it actually happened, and that was a little. They could have done something a little more
Unique.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for knowing every single word that I want to say, but I can't right now.
Yeah. I mean, part of me wonders if that was done intentionally to be like, okay, we're going to throw this one cliche in here to like let your guard down. I don't know if I can't speak to what the filmmakers were doing.
Yeah,
so
maybe
I
he
can't
always
really.
wanted to shoot a scene like that.
I wouldn't blame him because it was well shot. It's just it happened to be a
they did it
cliche.
right.
Yeah, that's all.
Guy comes stumbling into the room, and you're like, "Oh, hey, he's there!" And then he falls to his knees and has an axe in his back.
Oh yeah,
It's been done
yeah,
to death.
yeah. But that's okay. That's
I
just a
mean-
really small thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was something that it was because they had done such a good job with it before to see them not as much. Then that's why it was a little disappointing.
Yeah, I'll take a point away from that because I don't want to be like unfairly supportive of this movie just because it
We were in a good mood.
shines in the sea of like crap that we watch
Yeah.
at all times.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another thing I didn't like about it was the ham-fisted symmetry of him being stabbed in the neck at the end.
I agree.
I just thought that was way too on the nose.
Yeah, it felt very horror movie.
We find out early in the movie that him and his brother were playing in the woods when they were young, and his brother was like a bully that always picked on him, and he basically pushes him down and is like strangling him, and he stabs his brother in the neck and buries him, and then we find out that that's where all his mental anger problems stem from. Fast forward to the end, and the critic's wife stabs him in the neck with a stick, just like he did to his brother. And it was just needless.
And then that's the end.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I
Yeah.
was like, that's too...
It's too on the nose.
so on the nose.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
smashes the nose in with a cast iron skillet.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
I did not like it.
Well, wait, you have something else to say about this?
No, well, sort of. I was just going to say I was really hoping for like a food-related death.
Yes. That would have been much nicer.
I only had 3 negatives, and that was that I wanted it to be a comedy, and the axe in the back, and the plot symmetry.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The movie didn't take too many missteps.
No.
No.
I mean, it did a lot of stuff, very unique whilst being, inside the typical horror format, but they just tweaked some of the elements enough to be a little weird and kind of funny.
Yeah, it was like familiar without being derivative.
Yeah, very
of like
nice.
something else. Like it brought its own uniqueness to it.
Yeah. Because I liked the fact that it was all, food related, and he was a food critic, and the chef kidnapped the food critic, and he's making him cook these meals as like a torture.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Yeah, it's completely outrageous. That's why we thought it was going to be like way funnier.
Yeah.
But they made something that was that silly, and our expectation was silly, and they turned it into something that was serious, and that we took away going, "Whoa, that was kind of a bit much there, but that was pretty cool."
Yeah.
So, are there any risks that we have for the movie? Does the movie take any
I was
risks?
going to say the fact that the premise is pretty unique.
It is.
I feel like most horror movies kind of take pretty similar steps, and not to say that this doesn't fit within sort of that same like psychological territory, but I mean most horror movies are like slashers, or most of them are slashers as far as I'm concerned, because I'm not super familiar with the genre. But I mean this
Slasher or like possession movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like supernatural or slasher, or maybe both. And this kind of took it in a separate area, because this isn't really necessarily a slasher. And it's got a chef as the villain.
Celebrity chef.
Celebrity chef is the villain. Which, I mean, I can't think of too many movies that would follow that line. In fact, I have a hard time thinking of any movies about chefs. So this felt very fresh and unique to me.
What about the movie Chef that just came out with Jon Favreau?
Never mind.
So I thought this movie took a risk with where they took, I mean, our main character, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Once again, it's the blurred line, but you could say yes.
I'd say the food critic is the main character. I mean, he's the protagonist, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess.
If you wanted to, I mean, I don't think this really fits into that traditional narrative.
Clear cut, yeah. But so I guess in all of the tests he's doing, the last test is our chef Peter Gray is going to hunt the food critic, and he gives him a 3-minute head start. So that's the last test there. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, the wife had gotten kidnapped by the chef, and he was going to do something with the two of them. I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't really pan out. We don't have no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea.
I'm pretty sure he was going to chop up the dead PI and feed it to the wife.
Well, I thought he had already began doing that.
Yeah, he had already been doing that.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not going to tell her what I've been feeding her, he says.
Ew,
yeah. And then they find the PI in the kitchen, which is
gross.
Like covered in a tarp, which they had to do no special effects for that. And I was like, ooh, grody.
Yeah.
Which was really awesome. Yeah.
Less is more. So, yeah, the wife is there, and then she manages to escape from the basement. She's all tied up, and she runs into to her husband, the food critic, and they get the keys in the car, and they're about to leave. They're seemingly out of the woods. And all of a sudden, our food critic, our main character of this whole movie, gets sniped and
shot in the head out of
nowhere, and he's just dead. And like and then all of a sudden, this tension just transfers to the wife, and then you instantly empathize with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, whoa, because you kind of were, she was given to you earlier in the movie, and then you empathize with her. You're like, oh my god, everything's out on her now.
Yeah.
She's got to get away. And,
he gets shot and crashes the car, and then she has to like run for her life, basically.
Yeah, and that's when she stabs him in the neck for the ending. And then it would just cut to credits. It was just like, done story, out.
We've done what we
Cold
need to.
end. Here we go.
Yeah, we don't need to see the follow up. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's what happened. And so I thought that was a little different. I mean, it kind of brought me down a little bit, but then back up again.
Don't worry. She just marries Mario Batali, and then...
Oh.
Yeah. And then they live... Delightful.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great ending.
Totally changed my outlook.
But I thought that was different. They had the license to do it, and they did it.
Totally.
Yeah, wasn't expecting it. So if we don't have any more risks or whatever, it's a time for favorite parts.
Favorite part.
All right, let's do favorite parts. Who wants to start?
So when Peter has JT locked up in the basement, and I think it was like challenge number 2 that he wakes him up for, but it's very unexpected. It comes from a very low key scene. I think it might have been after Peter's talking to one of the PIs or something. Peter just busts into the basement where he's keeping JT and starts shocking him with a cattle prod. Just wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Which I feel like the filmmakers had to have done that for like some sort of comedic bent. Like at first, like the first 2 times he does it, I'm like, oh Jesus, that's horrifying. And then like he kept doing it, and it just became funny to me. Yeah. I really appreciated that.
For sure.
It was unexpected, it was funny, and it was shocking all at the same time. Because it was a cattle prod, see?
Another moment similar to that one that I would say was my favorite part was when, I think it was during the second to last one, where he was eating the rabbit and the ravioli.
That looked wicked
and all that
good.
Stuff. Yeah, it looked very good, but the challenge was one of them had poison in it, which had the fake... the not local wild berry?
Yeah, so
mulberries,
JT,
mulberries.
The imported mulberries.
There's imported mulberries that were poisoned, and then there were the local mulberries, and then he had to tell the difference between the two.
Because he claimed he could, and in the review that sunk Peter's restaurant.
He just devours the food after he selects which one he wants, and then it escalates really quickly. He gets stabbed in the hand, and then he just starts giving the chef a bad review at the table.
I thought that was great.
With a knife stuck in his hand. He's bleeding all over the tablecloth.
And like hyperventilating.
Yeah. And he was just like, it was overcooked.
The pasta was overcooked.
And he was just laughing, and I was like, oh, this is great.
I like that as well.
Yeah.
I really liked like the second challenge, first or second challenge, when he had to cook the egg.
I think that was the first one, yeah.
Yeah. I have all the challenges down, actually, if we want to go
I
through
wrote them down too. But just the fact that they made like he cracks the egg and you're like, all right, Putty, like just keep it steady.
Yeah.
And then he goes to flip it, and like for a second you think that it like didn't crack, like the yolk didn't break, and then it shows a close up of it and it's just a tiny bit oozing out, and you're just like
Oh
I was like, I love that they, like you said, you were like, they made an egg, like,
Yeah, they
tense.
make cracking an egg tense. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, like flipping an egg was like the point of so much concentration.
Yeah.
But it worked, and I was like,
Yeah, the horror movies are usually so much more high stakes than that.
Yeah.
And the fact that they managed to make something as simple as cracking an egg work.
yeah.
Would you say
Very
this movie was high stakes?
No.
Oh,
I wouldn't say that, even though he had to cook a steak.
I wouldn't say that either.
Yeah, we could run through the
yeah, so-
trials if
yeah.
you want. The first one was the water
Yeah,
one.
water was first, and then he had to make an egg the way he liked it, which was over easy.
Yeah.
So he had to make the perfect over easy egg. That was number 2. Number 3 was he had to make a medium rare steak.
Mm-hmm.
But he had to do all these while like tied up and chained down, and
With his hands tied together.
Ultra stressed out and starving, yeah.
He could barely reach whatever he was using, so he,
I'm sure there's some symbolism there, but I'm too stupid to pick it out.
And then there was the poison taste test of the rabbit ravioli, and then there was the deadly prey ending where he got hunted.
Yeah.
So those were all the
Slash
challenges.
surviving the game.
Slash iced tea.
Another part that I thought was really funny was when he busted into the basement and it was like, oh, it's welcome back to Cook for Your Life with Peter Gray. Because he hadn't referred to it as anything up until that point. And then I just thought Cook for Your Life was hilarious. That would be a legitimate cooking show.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd watch shows like this. This is like Snuff Food Network movie show.
I wrote down that it was Saw with food,
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah, it was very
You
palatable.
have a task.
I'd watch it.
So on Peter's cooking show, they're showing like the movie is always cutting back to like his cooking show, where he's kind of depicted as like a little pretentious control freak.
Yeah.
like he's paired with like the super bubbly like co-host, doesn't really know anything about cooking, is constantly giving him shit.
I wrote that she was a bitch because she was.
She was making terrible jokes.
It's pretty horrible, but my favorite. He's talking about how his egg is locally sourced, and look at that golden yolk, and it's got no chemicals, and it's just farm raised, free range. And she's just like, it looks like a normal egg to me. But then there's a point where he accidentally knocks the he accidentally knocks the bowl with the egg in it over because she hit like his whisk or something. And she just goes, "Oh, looks like your frittata is banana," like some imaginary Italian word. And the audience just like, ah!
We were like, what the fuck did she just say?
Doesn't make any sense.
We should rewind it and put on the captions and see if the subtitles tell us what it is.
It sounded like she said your frittata is balata,
It's going to say your frittata is unintelligible.
which would actually be better insult than balata.
What is fun? Oh god, sidetrack.
Okay, all right. Are we ready to rate it now?
I think I'm good. Yeah.
All right, let's.
Frittata is balata.
So let's rate it then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with.
Yeah,
fuck
I'm gonna
you.
have to give it an unfortunate fuck off.
Oh my god, my fucking father.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck yeah!
I will start.
You start then. What is
Since it was my gosh Dan pick.
Gosh, Dan.
I did say Dan. Whoops. Sorry, Dan.
We apologize to all fans.
This movie a fucking surprising.
Fucking surprising.
Fucking surprise.
Surprise.
It was not what I expected it to be, but in a positive way. It ended up surprising me in a pleasant way. I could have done with maybe a little bit more humor.
Yeah. Considering the subject matter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was just so silly. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it, and it was a breath of fresh air amongst the piles of drivel we subject ourselves to at all times.
That's true.
I liked it. I'd recommend it if you're just in the mood for a movie you've never seen that's going to be thoroughly entertaining the whole way through.
Yeah. I can dig it. What about you, Eric?
I'm gonna give this a fuck yeah.
Wow. An
Dun,
all-out
dun.
fuck yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because I'm in a good mood or that we were expecting something much worse than this.
Yeah.
But it very much caught me off guard. I feel like I would want to give it a second viewing and maybe see if there are things that I didn't pick up on originally.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it had a very fresh premise. It felt original. I felt like I've never seen this before. Like, a lot of the times when we watch like a really crummy derivative horror movie, it's usually like, I've seen this before, or I've even like, I'm aware of the trappings of this.
Yeah.
This just felt very unique. I'm not much of a horror movie person, but I would actually go ahead and say this is probably one of the best horror movies I've personally seen.
Wow, that is crazy.
It probably is because
No, that's okay.
Horror is not my genre, but like this just felt very original to me, and I really appreciated that.
Oh, that's awesome. And I will give this movie a pretty fucking good, if I can, and for all the reasons
You
mentioned. And everything they did was competent. They knew what they were doing. The filmmakers all had an eye for what they wanted to accomplish, and it came across.
Totally.
Considering it was just a straight to DVD thing. But yeah, pretty fucking good.
Agreed.
Surprising.
Final thoughts before we wrap up?
This movie made me hungry. Is that weird?
Not
You
at
know,
all.
All the food looked so good. Like everything he made looked so amazing.
Yeah.
I wrote down that I was so hungry.
Do you think Mario Batali made all the food?
I really hope so.
That would be awesome. All right, so let's wrap up then.
Oh, do we want to talk about It Follows?
Oh, shit! Yeah, so we just watched It Follows this past weekend, and
New in theaters.
before we get into it, I'm actually gonna say, and I'll stage what we're about to say a lot, I like this movie more than I liked It Follows.
Oof.
I did. Did you?
I don't know.
You don't know if you like
two
this movie
very
more?
different kinds of movies. I had high hopes for It Follows, despite me not wanting to psych myself up for things to be disappointed. I thought it had a great original premise,
Yeah.
and I felt like they could have done so much with it, and they just set up so much shit that they did not follow through with.
I can agree with that.
And I read an article about the ending and like how the writer-director said it was just because they were dumb kids. But I feel like that's just kind of a cop-out for not writing a compelling climax and ending to your movie.
Yeah, I mean, that movie was dragging me along, you know. It started out pretty good, you know.
For the first half hour, I was buckled in.
Dude, people are really good at starting movies. They just can't end them. I don't understand it. Like, so this movie started, and I was along for the ride, and then it kind of went back and forth for a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, let's just, see how it pays off. Let's go to the end. And when it ended, I was so mad. I was pissed. I was like, that's not like, it's an ambiguous ending. It was just no ending, in my opinion. It just stopped. I was like, you can't, I didn't appreciate it.
See, I don't usually mind endings like that because the same could be said for things like No Country for Old Men. Like, it doesn't have an ending. It just ends. But they just kept setting things up that they didn't use. Like, when the guy passed the thing on to her, he like set her up for it. He took every measure to convince her and like make her understand and believe what he was saying.
Yeah.
And like what was happening. And she did not extend that courtesy. She just like cowered and was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And like nobody wanted to like put in the
legwork
to like make this thing go away.
This is a very serious problem
I
you
was
have.
just,
You should get it
bogus.
fixed.
But there were some parts in the beginning that I found ultra creepy
Yeah.
and I thought were super cool. The music was super cool.
Music was really good.
It looked really good. I liked
Yeah.
the style. It just fell flat for me. It was just disappointing.
Yeah, agreed.
That's in my opinion. We just figured we'd throw that in there
Throw
since
it
it
in.
was something new and a lot of people seem to be interested in it and it got good reviews. So
All right, so you've been listening to Second Class Cinema. We watched Bitter Feast 2010, and we were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
We were.
give it a viewing.
We watched it on DVD. Like we said, we bought it from an old shutdown video store at the flea market now.
10 movies for $10.
Yep, go to that flea market. I'm not going to say
forget
where
what
it
it's
is
called.
because I want to buy all the movies.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Now we're going to go feast on some barbecue. Bye.
Yeah, so we have to talk about where everyone can see us.
Bye.
At the barbecue place, obviously.
Laters! Just kidding.
Commonwealth Barbecue, Rentham, Massachusetts.
So you can find us on Facebook. Give us a like there. Facebook.com/secondclasscinema. We are on YouTube, and we're going to start doing video, and we've got our audio up there, even though I've been
I
lazy.
can't wait for video content.
We're working on video content. We're very excited about it.
We went wardrobe shopping today, and it was fucking miraculous.
Yeah.
Check out Instagram for a preview
Yeah.
of what's about to come.
We should use Instagram more to promote a lot of the stuff we're doing for the short that we're making.
I'll do it.
We'll do that. So we're on Instagram too. We're on Twitter, Second Class Cinema on Twitter, at 2ND Class Podcast.
We're also on Instant Grandma if you need a grandma in an instant.
Dude, I got so many grandmas I need to unload.
Yeah. If you're looking for like $50 in your birthday every year, go to Instant Grandma.
Yeah,
They don't buy grandmas; they only sell them.
I got grandmas, I got Grammys, I got Bubbalos, I got them all.
You got nanas?
What have you? Oh, I got plenty of nanas.
Okay, good.
We got overstock of nanas.
Yeah, we got plenty of nanas. Trust me. And where else are we? We're on
Imager.
Imager and Podbean. We're hosted on Podbean. We like them a lot. I like them. I like the service. It's been working out really well.
Yeah, I do like it.
I like them, and I like you guys.
I like you and you.
I'm not used to hearing that line so
I
know.
love you.
And then we have GIF files that are on Imager and also on our Podbean website.
We got some
And
good stuff up there, so check it out.
Yeah, we got some good stuff. I'm a little behind because some of the stuff we've been watching has been a little weird for me to get, but
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. And that's pretty much it, I think. All right, goodbye! Well.